A local group that helps people experiencing homelessness is trying to replace thousands of dollars in supplies after it says thieves broke into their trailer. WCPO 9 News reporter Josh Bazan explains why Maslow's Army calls this a major setback.
There are mornings in America when the very first sound piercing the quiet street is not the gentle chirp of waking birds ushering in a new day. Instead, it is something much harsher, much more mechanical. It is the raw, unyielding screech of metal against metal, a tow chain taut and unforgiving, ratcheting tighter around its prey, a winch groaning under a heavy load, its mechanical whine echoing in the pre-dawn stillness, the powerful rumble of a massive truck meticulously extracting what, at first glance, appears to be just another vehicle, but in a chilling reality, is someone's entire world, their sanctuary, their shelter, their very bedroom. Within that metal shell, now being wrenched away, a child's backpack lies forgotten, perhaps holding homework or a cherished toy. A grandmother's essential medication, vital for her health and well-being, is still inside, trapped. A diligent worker's uniforms, necessary for their livelihood, remain bundled, now irrevocably separated from their owner. And for those forlorn figures standing motionless on the sidewalk, their eyes fixed on their RV as it is relentlessly pulled from their sight, this moment transcends the mundane. It does not register as a mere traffic violation or an administrative inconvenience. No, it feels profoundly, devastatingly personal. It feels like an eviction, brutal and swift, unfolding in a matter of mere minutes, stripping them of everything. Not the deliberate, often drawn-out process of a courtroom, not preceded by the due process of a formal hearing, not even allowing them the bare dignity of time to pack their meager belongings. Just a sudden, jarring knock on the door, a curt warning, and then the slow, sickening, soul-crushing realization that dawns with brutal clarity. My home has a license plate, and the city can simply take it away from me. Stay with us. Journey deeper into this untold story. This particular episode will not delve into graphic depictions of suffering or distress. We are committed to avoiding any sensationalism that might glamorize or normalize the profound harm experienced by these individuals. We will absolutely not feature scenes that would humiliate or demean anyone caught in these circumstances. Furthermore, we will not, under any circumstances, provide instructions or advice on how to break laws, acquire illicit substances, or evade law enforcement agencies. Our sole purpose is to tell the truth, and we pledge to do so with the utmost care, sensitivity, and precision, because across the vast expanse of the United States, the crisis of homelessness has tragically surged to a modern, unprecedented record, and the most rapidly evolving, most visible edge of this profound human emergency is now unfolding, ironically, on wheels. This is Homeless Lens. Our mission is to illuminate what remains unseen. And today, we embark on a journey down a specific kind of road, one that you won't find etched onto any conventional map. America's RV homelessness breaking point, a crisis unfolding in plain sight, yet often ignored. Welcome to Homeless Lens. We are glad you are here. This channel is dedicated to documenting the complex realities of homelessness with an unwavering commitment to dignity, not with judgment or disgust. Our lens is focused on understanding. We delve into the systemic failures that create this crisis, explore the ingenious and often desperate strategies of street survival, and amplify the deeply personal human stories that most people instinctively scroll past on their screens. We are rigorous in our commitment. We do not employ dehumanizing language, for every person has inherent worth. We do not broadcast graphic content. Our aim is understanding, not shock. We do not glamorize the devastating grip of drugs or romanticize the profound suffering inherent in homelessness. Our fundamental promise is to tell the truth, a truth rendered in a way that profoundly respects the people who are living through these unimaginable circumstances every single day. If you are new to our community, we sincerely invite you to subscribe, not for the fleeting thrill of drama or sensationalism, but for the enduring power of understanding, for clarity and empathy. Because once you genuinely grasp the intricate, often desperate mechanics of vehicle living in America, you will cease to ask the dismissive question, why don't they just move somewhere else? Instead, you will inevitably begin to ask the real, the urgent, the heartbreaking question, where on earth are they actually supposed to go? Let's begin our exploration. Part 1. The new neighborhoods with nitrogen monoxide zip code. If you find yourself driving through certain, less trafficked industrial or peripheral parts of this vast country early enough in the morning, before the daily rush begins, you will inevitably witness it. Long, silent rows of aging RVs, parked almost shoulder to shoulder along the less traveled industrial roads, their windows often curtained or covered. Vans, camouflaged as much as possible, tucked discreetly behind the imposing facades of big box stores, blending into the shadows. Cars, not just a few, but many, clustered near hospitals, a silent testament to medical crises and the proximity to care. Families, often huddled inside, using makeshift window shades or blankets as curtains, desperately trying to carve out a semblance of privacy. People, their breath misting in the cool air, heating small amounts of coffee on portable stoves right there on a curb, because the concept of a functional kitchen is a distant memory. These are not the jovial vacationers, charting cross-country adventures, their vehicles filled with leisure gear. These are human beings, using a vehicle, any vehicle they could find, as their last, precarious bastion of stable shelter, a desperate buffer against the absolute exposure of the street. And this is emphatically not a small, isolated phenomenon. This is a story of national scope and staggering impact. Across the nation, the number of individuals grappling with the brutal reality of homelessness has tragically climbed to the highest level ever recorded in the era of modern federal tracking systems. But here is the critical, nuanced detail, the granular truth that often gets overlooked in the sweeping national narratives. HUD's comprehensive national count, by its very methodology, does not always neatly and fully capture every intricate form of vehicle living with the same precision and detail as local community counts do. Consequently, if one focuses exclusively on aggregated national totals, there's a significant risk of missing the true, evolving shape and sheer scale of what is actually transpiring on the ground, in communities day after day. Fortunately, local communities and outreach organizations have been diligently documenting this specific, burgeoning crisis for years with a much closer, more intimate perspective. In Los Angeles County, for a stark example, the local homeless count consistently reports a vast and ever-growing number of people living in various types of vehicles, including everything from dilapidated RVs to ordinary cars, recognizing this as an integral, visible, and deeply concerning facet of the daily homelessness crisis that engulfs the sprawling city. Similarly, in King County, Washington, local social service systems and outreach teams have meticulously documented vehicle residency, not as an anomaly, but as a significant, entrenched component of unsheltered homelessness, particularly in and around Seattle. And what emerges, consistently and powerfully, from this rich tapestry of local data and direct observation is a profound, illuminating insight. Vehicle homelessness is not a monolithic group, easily pigeonholed. It is not one demographic. Instead, it is a complex, multifaceted mix of individuals and families, representing every stripe of American life. It profoundly includes seniors, many of whom have worked their entire lives, only to find their fixed incomes no longer stretch to cover housing costs. It includes dedicated workers, striving daily to maintain employment, often in precarious low-wage jobs. It includes entire families, often with young children, struggling desperately to maintain any semblance of stability. It includes people who, through no fault of their own, lost their stable housing after a devastating illness or a catastrophic medical bill. It includes individuals who are making desperate, calculated choices to remain near a crucial job, a vital school for their children, or a specific medical facility. And, crucially, it includes a significant number of people who are utterly terrified of traditional homeless, Shelters for a multitude of deeply personal reasons that outsiders, who have never experienced such vulnerabilities, rarely comprehend or appreciate. Some individuals live with severe physical or mental disabilities, requiring their own private space and quiet dignity that crowded shelters simply cannot provide. Many carry profound trauma histories, rendering them utterly unable to sleep safely or peacefully in large, communal, noisy rooms where privacy is non-existent. A significant number possess beloved pets, loyal companions, emotional support animals, whom they refuse unequivocally to abandon, choosing to stay with their furry family members no matter the cost. Others work odd hours or night shifts, their unpredictable work schedules fundamentally incompatible with the rigid intake and exit rules of most shelters, and still others are simply striving, against all odds, to preserve even the smallest shred of privacy and personal autonomy in a life that has, by necessity, become utterly public and exposed. Thus, vehicle living, for these diverse individuals, becomes a fragile, desperate compromise. It is undeniably not safe, riddled with hidden dangers and constant threats. It is far from stable, its existence perpetually at the mercy of external forces and arbitrary rules. But still it offers the profound, primal comfort of a door that closes, a tenuous barrier between them and the unforgiving world outside. Until, that is, it no longer does. Part 2, the big number that explains everything, housing math. In their quest for clarity, most people desperately seek a simple, singular reason to explain the intractable problem of homelessness. They often want to believe that homelessness is a direct consequence of one bad, individual choice, a personal failing. But in a multitude of American cities, the overwhelming, undeniable largest driver of homelessness is not the result of a single, isolated choice made by an individual. It is, at its fundamental core, a brutal, unforgiving arithmetic. There exists a pervasive, long-running, and deeply entrenched national shortage of homes that are genuinely affordable to people earning the lowest, most vulnerable incomes. This is not anecdotal, it's a systemic failure. Furthermore, there are widely cited and rigorously estimated figures suggesting that the U.S. housing market as a whole is experiencing a staggering deficit of millions of housing units, a number that fluctuates slightly depending on the specific economic methodology employed and the year of the analysis, but always remains alarmingly high. And even in those rare instances where housing units actually exist and are technically available, the sheer cost burden placed upon individuals and families is nothing short of crushing, unsustainable. The esteemed Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies has meticulously documented, over successive years, precisely how rent burdens have surged to unprecedented heights, revealing the shocking reality that an ever-growing number of households are now paying utterly unsustainable, financially debilitating shares of their hard-earned income just to keep a roof, however precarious, over their heads. Now, imagine combining that already untenable situation with the relentless, compounding pressure of evictions. Eviction filings, which diligently tracked city by city, have remained stubbornly and alarmingly high in a great many places across the nation, particularly as the emergency protections and rental assistance programs of the pandemic era gradually faded into memory. Disturbingly, multiple regions have not merely returned to their pre-pandemic levels of eviction, but have tragically exceeded them, signaling a worsening crisis. So, here is the stark, undeniable reality confronting millions of Americans. A truly enormous number of people are teetering on a precipice. Just one unexpected job loss, one devastating medical bill, or one incremental rent increase away from the terrifying prospect of losing their housing entirely. Their stability is a house of cards, and when the unforgiving rental market demands immaculate credit scores, exorbitant security deposits equivalent to multiple months' rent, and strict income multiples that necessitate earning 2 or 3 times the monthly rent, many individuals who stumble and fall behind just once find themselves utterly unable to re-enter the conventional housing market quickly, even if they manage to secure new employment. The doors slam shut. That, precisely, is how vehicle living morphs into the unintended, desperate bridge that people never, ever desired for their lives. It becomes the only visible path forward. A used RV or a battered old van, in that moment of desperation, can appear to be the ultimate escape hatch, a way to circumvent the insurmountable barriers of deposits, endless applications, and the constant, crushing sting of rejection. But that perceived hatch, that fragile escape, is nothing more than thin metal, offering scant protection, and its precarious existence is held together by an intricate web of rules, regulations, and external forces that the people inside simply cannot control. Part 3 WHYRVs became emergency housing in the first place. To truly grasp the insidious genesis of this particular wave of homelessness, one must look back to understand the unique confluence of events that unfolded just before it became so visible. During the extraordinary economic boom of the pandemic era, a peculiar phenomenon occurred. RV shipments surged to unprecedented levels, and the recreational vehicle industry recorded historically high sales volumes and almost feverish consumer demand for mobile escapism. Now, it is crucial to clarify that this surge does not imply that every single RV purchased during that period was immediately pressed into service as emergency housing. That would be an oversimplification, but it undeniably signifies something profoundly important, setting the stage for what was to come. Many more RVs, both new and used, entered the national market, dramatically increasing their overall availability. Simultaneously, a far greater number of people across all demographics became intimately familiar with the very idea of RV living, whether through personal experience or widespread media exposure, normalizing the concept of a mobile home. And critically, as housing costs across the board began their relentless, dizzying ascent, more and more financially squeezed households, desperate for alternatives, started to view vehicles not as a lifestyle choice for adventure, but as a last resort, grimly practical housing option, a necessary evil. In city after city, from bustling urban centers to quiet rural towns, one hears a deeply resonant, heartbreaking variation of the same fundamental sentence, whispered with regret and desperation. I wasn't actively trying to live like this. My one overwhelming goal was simply trying not to be out on the street, fully exposed. And for a precious, fleeting period for some individuals, an RV does indeed succeed in preventing the absolute horror of street homelessness, at least temporarily, offering a crucial delay. It provides a semblance of privacy, however thin its walls. It offers a designated place to safely store vital medication, away from the elements or prying eyes. It gives a precious, contained space to sleep without the terrifying vulnerability of being fully exposed to the elements, to strangers, and to danger. But that fragile, temporary stability, that momentary reprieve, is constantly besieged by a relentless array of formidable enemies. The ceaseless, often exorbitant costs of repairs as these older vehicles inevitably break down. The mandatory, often prohibitive expense of insurance, a legal necessity that is hard to maintain. The ever-present, crushing burden of fuel costs, essential for movement and basic survival. And perhaps most insidiously, the capricious, often relentless force of enforcement, wielded by city regulations. This, then, is the cruel trap that ensnares so many. Even if a person manages, through immense sacrifice, to acquire a used RV, the battle is far from over. They are immediately saddled with the ongoing, often unaffordable responsibility of maintaining it. And the very individuals who find themselves forced into using RVs as their last-ditch housing solution are, by definition, doing so precisely because they possess no spare money, no emergency fund, no financial buffer whatsoever. So one unforeseen mechanical failure, one blown tire, one engine problem, can trigger a devastating, irreversible chain reaction. The RV inevitably breaks down, often in an inconvenient or illegal spot. It then becomes exponentially harder, if not impossible, to move it regularly, trapping its occupants. Consequently, it becomes an easier target for ticketing, accumulating fines rapidly. And then, inevitably, it becomes an easier candidate for towing, a final, catastrophic blow. At that point, the person loses not only their last vestige of housing, their only shelter, but often also their sole means of transportation, sometimes their ability to travel to and from their job, rendering them completely unemployed. A vehicle home, tragically, is perhaps the only type of home in existence where the devastating act of losing your shelter can also simultaneously mean losing your job, often in the very same day, leaving you utterly destitute. And once a person falls into that deep, dark hole, climbing out becomes an agonizingly slow, often insurmountable, struggle. Part 4. Your home is illegal here. Enforcement as housing policy. Here's the particularly contentious part of this narrative, the point where passionate arguments and deeply held convictions ignite instantly. It is undeniably true that cities bear genuine and serious public safety responsibilities to their residents. Blocked roads, impeding emergency services, or daily commutes are indeed real hazards that demand attention. The risk of fire, particularly in makeshift living situations, is a very real and dangerous concern. Unsanitary conditions and public health problems, often associated with encampments, are also legitimate issues that require careful management. However, when enforcement in the form of tickets, fines, and towing becomes the primary, almost singular, response to the visibly burgeoning crisis of homelessness, the outcome for the individuals affected and for the community as a whole often looks precisely like this. People are simply displaced, shunted from one location to another, rather than genuinely housed in stable, dignified accommodations. The problem is moved, not solved. Across the sprawling landscape of the U.S., an increasing number of municipalities have actively passed and implemented tighter, more restrictive rules around sleeping outside or living in vehicles, often under pressure from concerned residents or business owners. And since the Supreme Court's pivotal decision in City of Grants Pass v. Many legal jurisdictions across the country have broadly interpreted the evolving legal landscape as granting them significantly more latitude and freedom to enforce their existing anti-camping laws, even in situations where the availability of alternative shelter, such as emergency beds, is demonstrably limited or virtually non-existent. Let us reiterate, for absolute clarity, we are emphatically not in the business of offering legal advice or interpreting complex statutes here. Our purpose is simply to meticulously describe what various communities are actively doing on the ground, and more importantly, to convey the lived realities and profound experiences of the people who are directly impacted by these policies day in and day out. In many major metropolitan areas, vehicle-focused enforcement strategies have dramatically expanded and diversified in various ways, often including increasingly stringent restrictions and aggressive towing policies, specifically targeting oversized vehicles, which frequently encompass RVs and large vans. San Francisco, for a particularly prominent example, has vigorously pursued enforcement actions specifically related to oversized vehicle habitation as a direct and integral part of its multifaceted approach to managing street conditions and addressing ongoing public safety debates, concerns that are certainly valid but often clash with human need. When you are forced to live in an RV, by necessity, you quickly and painfully learn a new, specialized, and utterly critical vocabulary, one that dictates the very rhythm of your life. 2-hour limits, dictating how long you can remain in a given parking spot before being forced to move. Oversized vehicle rules, an ever-present threat for anyone not driving a standard car. Street sweeping calendars, meticulously tracked dates that mandate immediate relocation, regardless of circumstance. Complaint-driven enforcement, meaning your very presence is contingent upon the tolerance of others, with a single phone call able to upend your entire world. Impound fees, a crippling financial blow that often makes retrieving your home impossible. Storage fees which relentlessly accrue, burying you deeper in debt. And you learn something else, something far more insidious and heartbreaking. Even if you diligently strive to do everything right, meticulously following every obscure rule and regulation, the sheer cumulative weight and inherent contradictions of these policies can still render any hope of genuine stability utterly impossible, because a great many of these well-intentioned or often punitive policies fundamentally require constant, often disruptive movement. But constant movement, for someone living hand-to-mouth, costs precious, irreplaceable fuel, a daily expense they can ill afford. Movement consumes invaluable time that could be spent working, resting, or seeking services. Movement utterly breaks fragile routines, destroying any semblance of normalcy. Children, caught in this relentless churn, frequently miss school, disrupting their education and sense of security. Adults, equally affected, miss crucial medical appointments, jeopardizing their health. Workers, unable to maintain a consistent commute or appear reliably, tragically lose their jobs, pushing them further into destitution. A person safely housed, hearing the mundane directive to move your vehicle, typically thinks of it as a minor inconvenience, a momentary annoyance. But a vehicle resident, hearing that same phrase, hears something far more catastrophic. I might lose everything I have left. Because if the RV is ultimately towed, it is not merely a ticket to be paid or a temporary setback. It signifies the absolute, devastating loss of their entire wardrobe, leaving them with only the clothes on their back, all their essential documents, birth certificates, IDs, medical records necessary for accessing any form of aid or employment, life-sustaining medication, putting their health and very survival at immediate risk. Irreplaceable family photos, the last tangible links to a past life, a sense of belonging. Crucial work tools, directly impacting their ability to earn a living. And perhaps most devastatingly, the last, fragile piece of privacy and personal space that a human being had managed to cling to. A tow, in this context, is not just a simple removal of property. It is a complete, brutal reset to zero, an annihilation of all accumulated efforts and fragile stability. And when literally thousands of people are being relentlessly reset to zero again and again, through these policies, the system itself inadvertently creates a deeply destructive pipeline, funneling vulnerable individuals into even deeper, more intractable forms of homelessness. Part 5: The Disappearing Middle Option, Safe Parking and Why IT Matters. So what then is the viable alternative to this relentless cycle of displacement and destruction? If cities are justifiably unwilling to tolerate RVs lining their residential or commercial streets, yet the people living within those vehicles genuinely possess nowhere else to go, what kind of humane, practical bridge exists between the absolute exposure of vehicle living and the ultimate goal of stable, permanent housing? One profoundly important and increasingly adopted answer that many forward-thinking communities have actively tried to implement is the concept of safe parking programs, designated, supervised lots equipped with clear rules, essential sanitation facilities, and critically, direct connections to vital social services. Let us be clear, these programs are not, by any stretch of the imagination, a full or comprehensive solution to the entirety of the homelessness crisis. They are a harm reduction strategy, not an ultimate cure. But what they can achieve is immensely significant. They can demonstrably reduce harm to vulnerable individuals. They can effectively reduce neighborhood conflict and the understandable frustrations between housed and unhoused residents. They can significantly reduce unsafe dumping and the accumulation of trash in unauthorized areas. They can reliably connect isolated individuals to crucial case management services, opening doors to further aid. And perhaps most fundamentally, they can create predictable, secure night switches. Without question, the very first, most essential ingredient of any true stability, allowing people to rest and plan. The profound, debilitating problem, however, lies in coverage. The existing capacity of safe parking programs is, almost universally, dramatically smaller than the sheer number of people who desperately require and qualify for such services. Furthermore, the availability and quality of these vital programs vary wildly and inconsistently from one city to the next, creating a patchwork of hope and despair. Networks of dedicated advocates and researchers who meticulously track these efforts consistently highlight just how scattered, underfunded, and inconsistent safe parking availability remains across the vast expanse of the country, leaving gaping holes in the safety net. When a safe parking program is indeed available and functioning, it can appear remarkably simple and straightforward from an external perspective. A well-lit lot, offering a sense of security even after dark, access to clean, functioning bathrooms, a basic human dignity often denied, regular trash pickup, maintaining cleanliness and reducing public health risks, clearly articulated rules designed to discourage chaos and promote a sense of order, and, crucially, trained staff members present who possess the expertise and compassion to connect people to the full spectrum of services they so desperately need. But from the deeply personal, internal perspective of someone living inside a vehicle, occupying one of those coveted spots, it can feel like nothing less than the very first time they have truly slept without the gnawing, pervasive fear of a sudden, terrifying midnight knock on their window, shattering their fragile peace. And that, precisely, is the critical insight that is so often tragically missed in the superficial, often adversarial public conversation surrounding homelessness. Stability is not exclusively synonymous with having permanent, bricks and mortar housing. While that is the ultimate goal, stability encompasses something broader and more immediate. Stability, at its core, is the fundamental ability to simply plan for tomorrow, to envision a future beyond the immediate hour. If your designated parking spot is liable to change abruptly every 48 hours, every aspect of your entire life inevitably devolves into a constant, exhausting scramble, a perpetual state of emergency. And it is precisely within that desperate, unending scramble that crises deepen, problems multiply, and human potential is tragically eroded. Part SIX winter, heat, and the body, the part nobody wants to film. When the general public conjures an image of RV living, their minds often drift to concepts of discomfort, inconvenience, or perhaps a rugged, adventurous spirit. But for those forced to live in vehicles, the danger is far more profound, far more existential, and often terrifyingly seasonal. Sudden, brutal cold snaps, particularly during the harsh winter months, can swiftly transform a poorly insulated vehicle into an acute health emergency, a death trap. Conversely, searing heat waves during the summer, exacerbated by inadequate ventilation, can inflict the very same life-threatening damage. And within this vulnerable population, older adults are especially, catastrophically, at risk, their bodies less resilient to environmental extremes. We are committed to our ethical guidelines and will not describe specific medical crises in graphic, sensational detail. However, it is a stark, undeniable factual truth that prolonged exposure to extreme cold and extreme heat can, without question, be directly life-threatening, particularly for individuals who are already contending with underlying health conditions or chronic illnesses. And vehicle living, by its very nature, also introduces a unique and alarming set of safety risks that are often overlooked. Fire hazards, for instance, significantly increase in makeshift living situations within enclosed spaces, where people might be using dangerous or unapproved heating and cooking methods. The insidious threat of carbon monoxide exposure is also a grave concern, as individuals, desperate to stay warm, might operate gas-powered generators or propane heaters in enclosed vehicle spaces, without adequate ventilation, leading to silent, odorless poisoning. Again, let us be absolutely clear. We are not providing instructions on how to live in vehicles. Our intention is solely to state the concrete, legitimate reasons why first responders, paramedics, and emergency services personnel express such profound and constant worry. If you have ever found yourself questioning why some cities and jurisdictions adamantly claim that their enforcement actions, their sweepings, their towings are primarily undertaken for safety reasons, this complex nexus of environmental and living risks is undeniably part of what they are pointing to, part of their genuine concern. But here, then, is the profound, heartbreaking contradiction inherent in that very logic. Paradoxically, the act of displacement, the very enforcement actions intended to enhance safety, can often simultaneously increase danger for the individuals being moved. If people are relentlessly pushed away from the very services designed to help them, away from dedicated outreach teams who build trust, away from vital clinics and medical care, away from areas that might offer a modicum of relative safety or visibility, their overall risk of harm, illness, and even death can tragically rise exponentially. So the truly fundamental, existential safety question that demands our collective attention is not merely, or even primarily, how do we efficiently clear a street of visible encampments? It is, instead, a much deeper, more humane, and ultimately more urgent inquiry. How do we keep people alive? How do we preserve their very existence long enough to have a realistic chance of actually getting them housed? Part 7. Fentanyl in the background, the overlap with overdose risk. We must approach this particular topic with the utmost sensitivity and extreme care, given its grave nature and widespread impact. As per our stated commitment, we will not describe specific drug use or provide any instructions related to it. We will not, under any circumstances, glamorize the use of substances or romanticize the profound suffering associated with addiction. It is simply impossible. It would be a dereliction of our duty to tell the truth, to have a frank and honest conversation about modern homelessness without unequivocally acknowledging the devastating, overarching shadow of the overdose crisis, which is intricately woven into its fabric. Nationally, fentanyl and a range of other incredibly potent synthetic opioids have tragically emerged as a major, overwhelming driver of overdose deaths in recent years, reaching epidemic proportions. Federal public health agencies, such as the CDC and SAMHSA, are meticulously tracking these horrifying trends with urgent vigilance. Local reports and on-the-ground observations also consistently and unequivocally show that individuals experiencing homelessness face dramatically elevated mortality risks, including, tragically, from fatal overdoses when compared with the general population. This disparity is not merely statistical, it reflects a profound vulnerability. This tragic correlation does not rise because homelessness, in a simplistic, direct cause and effect manner, somehow causes substance use. The relationship is far more complex and insidious. Rather, homelessness dramatically, systemically increases myriad risks that often lead to or exacerbate substance use and its fatal consequences: profound isolation, severing crucial social connections and support systems, intense, unremitting stress, and the crushing burden of constant survival, which can push individuals to seek any form of temporary escape or relief. Untreated physical and psychological pain, which can become unbearable without proper medical care. Massive, debilitating gaps in mental health support and access to psychiatric care. And, crucially, delayed or non-existent emergency response in times of crisis, often due to hidden locations or fear of interaction with authorities. Vehicle living, tragically, can add yet another perilous layer to this already fraught situation. Individuals are often alone, shielded behind tinted windows or in remote parking areas, making them incredibly difficult to locate or observe. They may not be seen quickly or at all in the event of an overdose or other medical emergency, leading to critical delays in intervention. They may harbor deep-seated fears of calling for urgent help, whether due to potential legal consequences, the stigma associated with homelessness and substance use, or past negative experiences with authority figures. This grim reality is precisely why harm reduction strategies are not merely beneficial, but utterly vital, not as an endorsement or approval of drug use, but as a fundamental, pragmatic pathway to sheer survival, to keeping people alive long enough to access help. A brief, non-instructional, yet essential note for our audience. If you are located anywhere in the U.S. and you encounter what appears to be a possible overdose emergency, please do not hesitate. Immediately call Emergency Services 911. Every second can count. Many communities across the nation also now carry naloxone, often known by the brand name Narcan, as a readily available public health tool capable of reversing opioid overdoses. If you have access to it and are trained, consider using it. If you or someone you know is struggling with substance use, mental health issues, or any other crisis, SAMHSAS National Helpline is a confidential, free resource available 24/7 for treatment referral support. Their number is a critical lifeline. We emphasize these points for one overriding, non-negotiable reason. You cannot begin the arduous journey of recovery if you do not first survive. Survival is the absolute prerequisite for any hope of a better future. Part 8. 3 short stories, composite profiles, privacy protected. The cold, hard numbers, the statistics and data points certainly matter a great deal, providing crucial context and scale. But the true, visceral, heartbreaking reality of the homelessness crisis only truly becomes comprehensible, truly hits home when you deeply understand what vehicle living actually looks like, feels like, and demands from a human being on a daily basis. These are not stories of individual, identifiable people. They are composite profiles, meticulously constructed from the recurring patterns, consistent themes, and common struggles extensively reported by dedicated outreach workers, observed in public data trends, and articulated in compelling public testimony. They have been carefully crafted to protect the absolute privacy and dignity of real individuals, while still conveying their truth. 1. Maria, the working adult priced out. Maria works tirelessly, often more than full-time, cleaning offices and public spaces. She once rented a small, modest apartment in a respectable neighborhood, a place she called her own. Then, with brutal regularity, her rent began its relentless climb. Soon after, her hours at work were unexpectedly cut, shrinking her already tight income. To compound her woes, her aging car, her lifeline, suddenly needed expensive, unforeseen repairs. She sat down late one night and meticulously did the math, the numbers stark and unforgiving. She realized, with a sickening lurch, that she simply could not afford to pay both her rising rent and maintain her essential transportation. The choice was impossible, yet forced upon her. So, with what little savings she had left, she bought an older, somewhat dilapidated van, a desperate compromise. Now, she meticulously parks it near her job site each night, ensuring her commute remains short, a crucial factor in keeping her employment. She showers whenever and wherever she can, often at public facilities or the kindness of a friend. Cherishing those rare moments of cleanliness, she meticulously hides her living situation from her co-workers, performing an exhausting daily charade, because the weight of shame, of perceived failure, is a heavy, crushing burden. Her greatest, most pervasive fear is not the bitter cold of winter nights, which she has learned to endure with blankets and ingenuity. Her absolute biggest fear is the dreaded sight of a tow truck, the sound of its approach. Because if she loses that van, her last refuge, she knows with terrifying certainty that she loses her job, too, plunging her into absolute destitution. To Robert, the older adult hit by medical costs. Robert is a man in his mid-60s, his body bearing the quiet history of a life well lived and hard worked. He toiled diligently for the vast majority of his adult life, contributing to society, paying his dues. Then a severe, unexpected medical problem struck with devastating force, draining his carefully accumulated life savings far faster and more completely than he could have ever anticipated, leaving him financially gutted. Now, living on a fixed income, a meager Social Security check, he finds that it simply does not stretch in a modern housing market, where rents continually outrun modest wages and even more modest benefits. The equation simply doesn't balance. So with nowhere else to turn, he moved into a small, aging RV, a mobile box that became his entire world. He is not seeking pity, not looking for sympathy or hand-holding. What Robert desperately yearns for, what he truly needs, is predictability, a modicum of control over his precarious existence, a legal, safe place to park his RV each night where he won't be rousted or ticketed, a reliable way to charge his essential phone, his only link to the outside world and emergency services, a secure method to keep his vital medications stored safely at the correct temperature, away from theft or spoilage. His greatest, most pressing fear is the harsh, unforgiving grip of winter, not because he is overly dramatic or prone to exaggeration, but because his body, weathered by age and illness, simply cannot handle the debilitating extremes of cold the way it did 2 decades ago. The risk is profound. 3 Jasmine and Eli, the young family navigating shelter rules. Jasmine and Eli are a young couple, fiercely devoted to their precious child. They tried, truly tried, to navigate the complex, often dehumanizing labyrinth of traditional homeless shelters. But the rigid, often impersonal shelter rules, the constant, overwhelming noise of crowded rooms, and the unrelenting turnover of new faces each night proved deeply destabilizing, making their child profoundly anxious and insecure. They also found themselves constantly struggling with the impossible task of storing their few belongings safely and, crucially, getting to their respective jobs on time while adhering to strict shelter schedules. So, they made a gut-wrenching choice, opting for an RV as their family home. Not because it was ideal, not because it was a dream, but because, in their desperate calculus, it felt like the only conceivable way to keep their beloved family together, under one roof, and, critically, to keep their child consistently enrolled in the same school, providing some small measure of continuity. Their greatest, most pervasive fear is not poverty, which they know intimately, but profound instability, because every single time they are forced to move, every time they are displaced by an arbitrary rule or a looming threat, everything in their already fragile lives begins to crack and unravel. Their precious, insufficient sleep, essential for functioning, their child's ability to concentrate on homework, jeopardizing their education, their child's consistent school attendance, impacting their future, and most devastatingly, their family's collective sense of hope, slowly eroding with each forced relocation. These heartbreaking stories are not isolated incidents. They are not rare anomalies. They are, in fact, the undeniable, tangible shape of a fundamental system under immense, catastrophic strain, a system failing its most vulnerable. Part 9. What's actually missing? The bridge back to housing. If one truly seeks to comprehend the profound breaking point that we are witnessing across America, the lens must focus relentlessly on one central, defining question. How, precisely, does someone transition from the precarious existence of living in an RV back to the stability and security of permanent housing? The sobering truth is that it usually takes far more than simply securing a job. However important that step is, it requires a multitude of stacked resources, often beyond the reach of those in crisis. Substantial upfront cash for security deposits and first month's rent, often amounting to thousands of dollars. A clean, verifiable rental history, which is nearly impossible to maintain while unsheltered. A good credit score, meticulously built over years, often destroyed by poverty and instability. An immense amount of time, a luxury denied to those in constant survival mode. To navigate complex application processes, an intricate stack of paperwork, often requiring access to scanners, printers, and reliable internet, which are unavailable. And crucially, a housing market that actually has openings for deeply affordable units. A rarity in most American cities, but a great many communities are already suffering from a severe, long-standing shortage of truly deeply affordable housing units, creating an impenetrable bottleneck. So, people become irrevocably stuck, caught in a systemic trap. They are emphatically not choosing homelessness as the pervasive, judgmental narrative often suggests. They are, instead, tragically trapped in an ever-widening gap, an unbridgeable chasm between what they can realistically earn through their labor and the skyrocketing, exorbitant cost of housing. This stark reality is precisely why so many experts, researchers, and dedicated advocates in the field tirelessly emphasize the paramount importance of robust prevention strategies and clear, well-funded permanent housing pathways, rather than relying solely on punitive enforcement as a primary response. And this, fundamentally, is also why effective housing policy is not an abstract, academic concept, baited in ivory towers, distant from human lives. It is, in its most visceral, impactful form, quite literally the decisive difference between a family, cold and vulnerable, sleeping hidden behind a sprawling warehouse, terrified of discovery, or that very same family, safe and secure, sleeping peacefully behind a locked door, their privacy and dignity preserved. Part 10, Outro, Seeing the Human Being Inside the Vehicle. If you have remained with us, if you have watched this narrative through to its very end, we extend our sincerest, deepest gratitude, because this story, this complex human saga, is remarkably easy to tell in the wrong way, to misrepresent and distort. It is far too easy, in a moment of fleeting judgment, to simply point a dismissive finger at an RV parked on a city street and see only a problem, an eyesore, an inconvenience, a challenge to urban order. But a vehicle, any vehicle, when pressed into service as shelter, is not merely a transient trend, a temporary anomaly that will simply fade away. It is, in its profound truth, a stark, urgent warning, a siren blaring in the heart of our communities. It tells you, unequivocally, that the foundational housing ladder, once a pathway to stability for many, now has critical, broken, and entirely missing rungs, making ascent impossible. It tells you that the wages earned by countless Americans and the soaring cost of rent have catastrophically decoupled, creating an unbridgeable economic divide. It tells you that far too many people, through no fault of their own, are just one single, unforeseen crisis away from the terrifying prospect of sleeping behind a pane of glass, their lives reduced to a public spectacle. And here, then, is the hardest, most inconvenient truth, the one that must be confronted directly. When a city, in its effort to clean up its streets, tows away an RV that someone, a human being, genuinely lives in, it does not, fundamentally, erase homelessness from existence. It doesn't solve the problem. Instead, in a cruel twist of fate and policy, it often tragically converts it. It transforms homelessness from something that was perhaps hidden behind a tinted window to something painfully, utterly exposed to the elements and public view. It shifts people from a fragile shelter, however inadequate, to the terrifying vulnerability of the open air, with no protection whatsoever. It pushes individuals from barely holding on, their lives a tenuous thread, to an absolute, terrifying free fall into deeper despair and destitution. So what, then, is our collective responsibility? What do we do in the face of such profound human suffering and systemic failure? We must begin with how we talk, with the language we choose, ensuring it is always imbued with empathy and respect. Absolutely no cruelty, no dismissive labels, no dehumanizing epithets. No cheap jokes that trivialize or turn profound human suffering into mere entertainment or fodder for social media. No labels that strip people of their inherent dignity and worth. Then, we must move decisively to what actually changes outcomes, to concrete actions that bring about tangible relief and lasting solutions. Actively support organizations and non-profits that are on the front lines, doing the vital, difficult work of housing navigation, conducting compassionate outreach, and establishing and operating safe parking programs, especially those that possess clear, effective pathways to connect individuals to permanent, stable housing. Advocate fiercely and locally within your own communities for the creation of more deeply affordable housing units and the implementation of realistic, humane transition programs that acknowledge the complexities of people's lives. Push tirelessly for comprehensive, evidence-based solutions that demonstrably reduce harm for vulnerable individuals, instead of inadvertently multiplying it through punitive policies. And if you feel compelled to help right now, immediately, in a real, practical, and impactful way, donate tangible, practical items that are crucial for keeping people stable, for maintaining their dignity and basic comfort. Simple phone chargers, essential for communication and safety. Warm, comforting blankets, a shield against the brutal cold. Basic hygiene supplies, essential for health and self-respect. And yes, even humble socks, because, astonishingly, one dry pair of socks can fundamentally change the entire course of a night, offering warmth and a sliver of hope. Finally, if you are in the U.S. and you or someone you know is in crisis, whether related to homelessness, mental health, or substance use, please consider contacting your local social services agencies or utilizing the 988 Lifeline, a free, confidential resource available 24/7. Help is there. This is Homeless Lens. Our enduring message is simple yet profound. See people, not problems. See the human being, not just the circumstance. And I'll see you in the next one, as we continue to shine a light.
A local group that helps people experiencing homelessness is trying to replace thousands of dollars in supplies after it says thieves broke into their trailer. WCPO 9 News reporter Josh Bazan explains why Maslow's Army calls this a major setback.
There are mornings in America when the very first sound piercing the quiet street is not the gentle chirp of waking birds ushering in a new day. Instead, it is something much harsher, much more mechanical. It is the raw, unyielding screech of metal against metal, a tow chain taut and unforgiving, ratcheting tighter around its prey, a winch groaning under a heavy load, its mechanical whine echoing in the pre-dawn stillness, the powerful rumble of a massive truck meticulously extracting what, at first glance, appears to be just another vehicle, but in a chilling reality, is someone's entire world, their sanctuary, their shelter, their very bedroom. Within that metal shell, now being wrenched away, a child's backpack lies forgotten, perhaps holding homework or a cherished toy. A grandmother's essential medication, vital for her health and well-being, is still inside, trapped. A diligent worker's uniforms, necessary for their livelihood, remain bundled, now irrevocably separated from their owner. And for those forlorn figures standing motionless on the sidewalk, their eyes fixed on their RV as it is relentlessly pulled from their sight, this moment transcends the mundane. It does not register as a mere traffic violation or an administrative inconvenience. No, it feels profoundly, devastatingly personal. It feels like an eviction, brutal and swift, unfolding in a matter of mere minutes, stripping them of everything. Not the deliberate, often drawn-out process of a courtroom, not preceded by the due process of a formal hearing, not even allowing them the bare dignity of time to pack their meager belongings. Just a sudden, jarring knock on the door, a curt warning, and then the slow, sickening, soul-crushing realization that dawns with brutal clarity. My home has a license plate, and the city can simply take it away from me. Stay with us. journey deeper into this untold story. This particular episode will not delve into graphic depictions of suffering or distress. We are committed to avoiding any sensationalism that might glamorize or normalize the profound harm experienced by these individuals. We will absolutely not feature scenes that would humiliate or demean anyone caught in these circumstances. Furthermore, we will not, under any circumstances, provide instructions or advice on how to break laws, acquire illicit substances, or evade law enforcement agencies. Our sole purpose is to tell the truth, and we pledge to do so with the utmost care, sensitivity, and precision, because across the vast expanse of the United States, the crisis of homelessness has tragically surged to a modern, unprecedented record, and the most rapidly evolving, most visible edge of this profound human emergency is now unfolding, ironically, on wheels. This is Homeless Lens. Our mission is to illuminate what remains unseen, and today, we embark on a journey down a specific kind of road, one that you won't find etched onto any conventional map. America's RV homelessness breaking point, a crisis unfolding in plain sight, yet often ignored. Welcome to Homeless Lens. We are glad you are here. This channel is dedicated to documenting the complex realities of homelessness with an unwavering commitment to dignity, not with judgment or disgust. Our lens is focused on understanding. We delve into the systemic failures that create this crisis, explore the ingenious and often desperate strategies of street survival, and amplify the deeply personal human stories that most people instinctively scroll past on their screens. We are rigorous in our commitment. We do not employ dehumanizing language, for every person has inherent worth. We do not broadcast graphic content. Our aim is understanding, not shock. We do not glamorize the devastating grip of drugs or romanticize the profound suffering inherent in homelessness. Our fundamental promise is to tell the truth, a truth rendered in a way that profoundly respects the people who are living through these unimaginable circumstances every single day. If you are new to our community, we sincerely invite you to subscribe, not for the fleeting thrill of drama or sensationalism, but for the enduring power of understanding, for clarity and empathy. Because once you genuinely grasp the intricate, often desperate mechanics of vehicle living in America, you will cease to ask the dismissive question, why don't they just move somewhere else? Instead, you will inevitably begin to ask the real, the urgent, the heartbreaking question, where on earth are they actually supposed to go? Let's begin our exploration. Part 1. The new neighborhoods with nitrogen monoxide zip code. If you find yourself driving through certain, less trafficked industrial or peripheral parts of this vast country early enough in the morning, before the daily rush begins, you will inevitably witness it. Long, silent rows of aging RVs, parked almost shoulder to shoulder along the less traveled industrial roads, their windows often curtained or covered. Vans, camouflaged as much as possible, tucked discreetly behind the imposing facades of big box stores, blending into the shadows. Cars, not just a few, but many, clustered near hospitals, a silent testament to medical crises and the proximity to care. Families, often huddled inside, using makeshift window shades or blankets as curtains, desperately trying to carve out a semblance of privacy. People, their breath misting in the cool air, heating small amounts of coffee on portable stoves right there on a curb, because the concept of a functional kitchen is a distant memory. These are not the jovial vacationers, charting cross-country adventures, their vehicles filled with leisure gear. These are human beings, using a vehicle, any vehicle they could find, as their last, precarious bastion of stable shelter, a desperate buffer against the absolute exposure of the street. And this is emphatically not a small, isolated phenomenon. This is a story of national scope and staggering impact. Across the nation, the number of individuals grappling with the brutal reality of homelessness has tragically climbed to the highest level ever recorded in the era of modern federal tracking systems. But here is the critical, nuanced detail, the granular truth that often gets overlooked in the sweeping national narratives. HUD's comprehensive national count, by its very methodology, does not always neatly and fully capture every intricate form of vehicle living with the same precision and detail as local community counts do. Consequently, if one focuses exclusively on aggregated national totals, there's a significant risk of missing the true, evolving shape and sheer scale of what is actually transpiring on the ground, in communities day after day. Fortunately, local communities and outreach organizations have been diligently documenting this specific, burgeoning crisis for years with a much closer, more intimate perspective. In Los Angeles County, for a stark example, the local homeless count consistently reports a vast and ever-growing number of people living in various types of vehicles, including everything from dilapidated RVs to ordinary cars, recognizing this as an integral, visible, and deeply concerning facet of the daily homelessness crisis that engulfs the sprawling city.